giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Now, of course, for those, as soon as you get started, I am sure immediately they are going to gather that you are not from North America. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I definitely am not from North America, as not North America as they come. Down under. Hi, I'm Jazz from Australia. I'm a graphic designer, lettering artist, muralist, and pricing queen. Definitely a little bit of a hike between you and I. You did show me snow outside of your door earlier, and I went, okay, I've never seen snow, but that's fantastic. So yeah, a little bit of a travel, which just sprinkle that in there. Yeah, so yeah, a bit of a trip between you and I.
For sure. And of course, Australia is such a dream destination of so many North Americans, and definitely one that a lot of travel advisors will love to be able to sell. So I love that we can bring that international perspective into it. For reference, today, while we're recording this, it is minus 32 degrees Celsius out there. So it's not just that it's snow, it's freaking cold.
Yeah. That those numbers don't quite make sense in my brain. The other way is kind of the last week we've actually had 32 degrees, sunny, hot. The sun seems to be biting my skin because I am incredibly pale. But yeah, I'm the kind of pale that like reflects the sun. So don't sunbake next to me because you'll get double the tan. But yeah, that's I feel like it's really interesting. And this is one thing that I've found with having, international guest episodes on podcasts, but also teaching my students, they're everywhere in the world and they're, dealing with the different things and different climates and different situations across the world. But the one thing that we're finding is that we can connect through this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that it's like the sun's biting your skin, because the cold bites our skin here. I was outside doing something and I had plans to do a bunch, and then I'm like, no, it's too cold even for me. I'm going in.
Yeah, Mother Nature is hungry and wants to take a bite. That's what it is.
She sure does. She sure does. Anyways, I am so glad that you are able to join me. I heard you on Jasmine Star's podcast and I was like, OMG, I have got to have you on our podcast because travel advisors are going to get so much from her because all she talks about is knowing your value and understanding and being willing to charge for it. And as we're seeing this increase of social media posts out there, it doesn't cost anything more to use a travel agent. I am the same price as the internet. All of this different sort of marketing that I know people are trying to use to get business started kind of makes me want to scream a little bit. So I was like, we need to bring on the pricing queen and let's talk pricing.
Excellent. Yeah. So this is, and I definitely see it as well in my industry of being graphic design. You constantly see these, well, I'm as cheap as Fiverr, or I'm just as able or capable as, a stock site, and the problem there is that by positioning or placing yourself as a comparison to a cheap product, you're not actually making yourself more valuable. You're making a comparison to a cheap product. And it means that you are prompting your ideal customer, client to do the same. And if you're sitting there going, I'm just as cheap as the next person, well, then why would they go with you? What's the benefit? Like you're actually just saying to them, yeah, I'm not that great. Okay, well, cool. I'll move on then.
I love that because that's absolutely it. If that's your quote unquote unique selling position, it's not so unique. And
yeah, exactly.
And I've said this for years in coaching that when people are loyal to price, they're not loyal to you. You are literally in a race to the bottom. There is no trophy for second cheapest because there will always be somebody cheaper. And it doesn't work. I use people off of Fiverr. Don't get me wrong. I use people off Fiverr. Could I tell you who they are? Heck no. I have to go in and look so that I can reorder from the same person. When I reorder from the same person, I don't even pay attention to what their name is. That's not true. I have one guy that I absolutely adore, but if you were to ask me what his name is right now, couldn't tell you. I would have to go in. So that doesn't set you up for future referrals. It just gets you somebody that's like, oh yeah, I know somebody. Yeah, just go on there. You'll find them.
Exactly. And I think it harkens back to the days of, you would have a local family GP. It used to be that there was a local family travel agent, like everyone would go through the same travel agent and they would have this relationship and this connection with that person because, they would tell them, oh, we're going to be looking for this sort of thing. When a good deal comes up, can you let us know? But let me get this really clear and really crystal from the start. They're not paying for the trip. They're paying for you to be the professional to recommend, recognize, and have their best interests at heart. And that doesn't stop from the moment they hand over the money. That doesn't stop from the moment they get back and 3 months later unpack their suitcase. You're trying to create and cultivate a relationship, and that's what that is for. That's what they're paying for. And it's not been if there's ever been a time to have someone on your side and in your back pocket who's going to get you home in a time of crisis, it's now.
Absolutely. And not only that, just to move through all the gobbledygook of all of the ever-changing rules. That in itself, the fact that you are investing the time to understand this for your clients, the amount of hours that you are spending every week just to understand what the latest restrictions are, that alone, you are saving your clients that time, that headache, that stress, that overwhelm. That's worth something, and they are willing to pay for it.
Most definitely. And there's, I don't know about anyone out there, but I have that many travel credits that is just, look, I could start my own little shop of selling travel credits, like all these refunded flights. I could fly quite a lot. And that's because I've booked direct. And so, having a travel agent on side, which is something that, for short haul stuff, I wouldn't necessarily, but for things where, you're having to get somewhere or go somewhere, which is outside the realms of organization. And, we're all organizational queens in our own respect, whether it be organizing the flights, the hotels, whatever it ends up being. You're wanting to try and make sure that you cover the time, the effort, the energy, but also the peace of mind and the convenience that that's been organized. And when it does turn to shit, it can be reorganized in a way that's not going to actually make you feel like you're shortchanged.
Absolutely. There's so many things that go on in terms of the fact that when I coach travel advisors, I hear from them, I can't charge fees because they came to me with this price already, or they're just looking for a deal, or worse than that. This is my favorite after seeing the marketing that went out is I don't get how people have luxury clients. All of my clients come to me just wanting cheap trips. And this is something
it because you're promoting cheap trips?
Right. I was going to say, this is what we talked about before we went live here, is the fact that when you talk cheap, you attract cheap. And when you start saying that you're the same price as the internet, or, that you are free or this or that, guess what? You're going to attract people who want to get the bottom dollar.
Yeah, cheap prices attract cheap clients. That's just the long and short of it. And, you might be sitting there going, well, maybe I need to change my prices. No, you need to change your clients. And to change your clients, you need to be saying different things than what you are doing now. I think it was a recent episode that you put out there, which was saying, everything that you've done has got you to where you are now, but it's not going to get you to the next thing because you're not changing. You're not doing anything different. So you need to change that expectation. And the same goes for, we say in relationships, you must love yourself before you can love someone else. Well, you need to value yourself before someone else is going to actually value you.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So this is just going to make me chase a little squirrel here, because I cannot tell you how many single women have passed through my life who have told me, but nobody's ever gonna love me. And I remember one in particular. She was actually one of my sales reps back when I owned my office. And she's like, I can never find anybody. And I looked at her, I said, go live your own life and forget about it. And so she went out, she bought herself a condo like 2 months later and bought herself a condo. Would you believe her friends invited another friend to help her move in? Guess who she married? And so when she said to her friends, why did you never set me up? And they said, well, you were so desperate all those years. We knew you'd just scare them away. But when you decided you were just going to live, you were open to it. And so, yeah, so she just forget it. I'm whole on my own. I can do this. And now look at that. Like, she was engaged very quickly thereafter. It was really quite a mind warp type thing. So,
yeah. And the same thing goes for in business. If you're sitting there going, no one's going to pay my expensive prices, not with that attitude, they're not. Like, it's literally a mindset shift of, well, what if it works? Well, what if they do pay? And what if in 6 months' time, when they've gone and experienced that incredible trip and have seen the value that you could have added, or that you did add because you had more budget to play with, like, just because you're charging more might mean that you can actually, organize with the location to have, something on arrival or something special for them from the travel agent. These are things that you're able to sit there and go, I can add value because I have more budget, because I charged fees. Like, that's just the long and short of it.
Well, and that's just it. And this was a conversation I had with a travel advisor recently on a coaching call, as they said, well, I just, if they come in with the order, I just give it to them. And I said, okay, but what happens if something goes sideways? Are you just going to say you didn't pay my fee, so I can't help you? They're like, well, no. And I said, well, then how is that fair to those that do pay the fee? But also too, this is something that I always say to travel advisors. If you were to charge fees, would you need as many clients? And a lot of them will just take those order taker clients because they don't have time to do it, because they're going for the quantity over the quality. And if you had quality clients, that's where, one, you start getting respect from your clients, which we all want to be respected for our authority and our expertise. But also, two, when you have clients who respect you, who value you, and therefore pay you, you don't have to have as many clients because you're going to make that up. And what does that give you? That gives you freedom. That gives you time with your family, your friends, gives you time to travel.
And therefore you can then research, find the next place, know that you are the professional walking into the situation and can say, oh no, I've been there. There's actually this little place around the corner that's really fantastic, which is a recommendation, which makes you more valuable, which means that you can, it's about having the confidence behind those extra fees, knowing that they're not just thrown in because they are put in place so that you can do your job better.
Exactly. So now for travel advisors, because there's a lot of travel advisors who come into the industry during the pandemic, we've actually seen a big wave go out and a big wave come in because they see that there's value in travel advisors. Now, one of the things that I see right off the bat is everybody is so focused, and bless our suppliers, but this is what they teach. You got to know the suppliers. You got to know this, that, the other. And you're going to get product knowledge. First of all, you're never going to know it all. The suppliers are going to change it every year. They swap things out. They change it. They do this, they do that. When people have to know something for their job, they have to know that thing. When you're in the travel industry, you have to know the world. And I don't think enough people recognize that, because you need to know what's the infrastructure like around the world? How do they get from point A to point B? What's the best way of doing it? What is the currency? What is the language? What is the temperatures? What is the political climate? What is all of the different things? And that's without a pandemic in the middle of it all. So you're never going to know it all, because this is what I hear from a lot of travel advisors. I can't charge fees yet because I don't know enough. So what would you say to somebody who says, I don't know enough?
So I think that that's probably applying a discount code before you've given a reason for applying said discount code. And just because you don't believe in yourself, you already actually do know more than the person who's asking you the questions, because they're trying to find that out. There is nothing wrong with, oh, let me find that out for you, rather than I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me find it out for you is providing a service. It's extending your knowledge. And the next time that someone asks that, you won't have to have that. Let me find that out for you. You'll know. So you can give that information. But just because you haven't traveled the world, and I'll tell you right now, it's very few people of us that have done the entire world. You can't sit there and rely on waiting for this milestone of, I've got a sticker for every single place in the world, therefore I know everything. Guess what? The place that you went to at the start is completely different now.
Mm-hmm.
They're completely changed. There's different infrastructure. You only need to know enough to teach or show the person who's asking the questions. And when you don't, you can provide that service to find that out, because you are in a better position than them to find out the answer. That's valuable.
That's awesome. And I could not have said it better. Our suppliers are going to have boots on the ground in every destination. They have ways of getting answers that a consumer never could. Mm-hmm. There's so many resources. If you haven't been, odds are good you're a part of a Facebook group with another travel advisor who has. There's all these different sorts of things. And, we talked earlier too about, if you go around the corner, there's this great little restaurant. In 2020, in January, it might have been there. Who knows what's still there in March, April, or May of 2022 or beyond. We have absolutely no idea who survived the pandemic, who retired, who moved to a new location. Just because you knew something at one point doesn't mean it still exists now.
Absolutely. And there's this quite different TV show that I've watched many, many times over, because I rewatch the same series many, many times over because, anxiety. But it's called Hotel Babylon. And there's a doorman at the front, and he knows everything about everywhere, about everyone. And the reason why he knows isn't because he's been everywhere. It's because he has a strong network, a strong community, that he asks questions, that he seeks out and does his own research. Not in a, I'm going to go everywhere so that I can recommend these tickets and this person and this restaurant and I can book that. It's being able to provide a service, but also tapping into your own network to understand, okay, well, I know that that's something that's coming up. And not only that, you're tapping into your network to find out answers to questions, but you also then want to be kind of cultivating and creating that same sort of thing to be that person for someone else. So you might be able to put out on a Facebook group, I'm doing an Ask Me Anything on traveling to this place because I've been there. And then that creates you as a specialist within that space. So it means that if someone has a customer that comes to them and says, I'm wanting to go to this destination, can you help me? You're going to be in a really good position to create and cultivate that relationship. Now, that's going to be really beneficial and valuable down the road. And yes, it may feel like, oh, I'm sharing all of my intellectual property, I'm sharing all of my information. Well, would you rather competition or community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing. I do not believe that there is anything inside of any of us that is not Googleable.
Yeah.
It really and truly is. To me, what people are paying for is to not have to Google it.
Yeah.
It's to not have to spend all that time. I remember a statistic prior to pandemic where the average consumer spent something like 10 or 14 hours or something it was researching a basic trip. They could spend upwards of 100 and some hours researching a complex trip. Mm-hmm. That is an insane amount of money that they are losing by using their own time when they could be getting paid by their jobs to do the work and other such, and hiring somebody else to do it.
And here's the thing, so let's base it on that complex trip of 1,000 hours that they've put in. They, as a person, their time is valuable. And even if you put a single dollar on their time per hour, that's $1,000 that they've spent of their own time value worth. Why is it so hard then to charge a fee for that?
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So now, if you are new to charging fees, where would you even start calculating a price?
So I'm going to be really transparent and say that I've always specialized in the billable hour or the dollar amount on the time of a creative professional. But I also believe that a creative is actually someone who solves a problem in a non-traditional way. And I feel like that's applicable to the travel industry as well, because
Absolutely.
the creative problem is that they want to get from here to there with lower stress, lower strain, lower freak out, and also have that convenience of someone else looking after what they need. Now, when it comes to fees, I feel like if you look back on what you've done for the last year, and then you work out, okay, how much would I have made if I applied this much of a fee to each one of those? And if it's a flat fee, or whether it's it can be obviously different ways of setting up. But if it's say you've booked, I'm probably going quite tame here, but 100 for the calendar year, and you're putting just, a $20 amount on each one of those, that's straight away going to be $2,000. Now, does that cover the extra kind of deficit that you would need to be making to take you to that next level of where you want to be? Because you're dealing with both a commission base, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is obviously like a little bit new territory. You're dealing with both a commission base and also a constant.
Absolutely. So in the travel industry, there is a lot of commission-based products. Some are a healthy commission and other ones are really not. Like, I legit remember just before I left travel, I'm looking at an Alaska cruise with one of the major cruise lines, and oh my heavens, I think it was like $700 for the cruise, but because there were so many NCCFs and government fees and taxes and this, that, the other, the commission, I kid you not, was $1.70. Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that you don't sell that. Sorry, that doesn't mean that you don't recognize that that's an offer, or you go, oh, well, I'm going to sell that more often. No, you just don't bother.
Right?
Like, stop trying to put all of your eggs in a basket that doesn't have a bottom.
I'd love that.
Like,
that's, yeah.
So yeah, it's really relevant to not waste your time on that. Don't put it out there. Don't fill the basket with the eggs and that doesn't have a bottom. It's not worth putting your time, effort, and energy into that to make that work.
Yeah. And that's just it, because there's a lot of travel advisors. When you are attracting a quote unquote cheap client, they want that extra deal on the Alaska cruise or to the wherever. Obviously there's lots of cruises out there that have fabulous commissions and things like that, but you can't guarantee it. And this is something I have said right from the moment the pandemic hit. When we realized this was not going to be 2 weeks and we start, the cruise.
Oh, I remember that weekend. I remember that weekend because I was gearing up to drive home to see my mum perform in Mamma Mia. She hit the stage 14 months later.
Okay, so here's the irony of that weekend for me. I was at a women in business planning retreat where we were all planning out our business plans for the year to come. And I do remember arriving on the Friday saying, shit just got real. They're closing Disneyland. Like, they're closing Disney. Like something
That was the indicator that stuff's going to happen.
Like when they
I
were going to
love
close
that.
Disney, I was like, ooh, this is big stuff, people. And
Well, they
so
closed Adelaide. That was what it was for me. It was like, oh, they've closed the Adelaide border. Must be serious.
but so that's Friday night. So we had a few drinks Friday night. And then Saturday, we spent all day Saturday business planning, strategizing everything else. And Sunday, they announced the schools were going to be closed. And then we went into lockdown. And so it was really cute because then we went to have a conversation with this women's group, and because I'm on the
about future planning and building futures.
right. I'm on
Excellent.
the planning committee now, and they're like, so what do we do? I'm like, well, we need to revisit the business strategizing because all the businesses got closed right after that. So yeah, so I love that you're like, I remember that weekend. I'm like, I will never forget it. The other thing I said is, if I wasn't going to be allowed to visit people for months on end, that was the way to go out.
Yeah, that's fair. And I actually remember a couple of months in, and because being in Melbourne, we've been the most lockdown state ever. Our 2-month lockdowns go for like 6 months. And so it ends up like, okay, cool, no worries, we'll keep going. But I remember during one of my pandemic cleanouts, because if you didn't have one of these, did you really have a pandemic? And
Right.
I'm there cleaning my makeup brushes like I have somewhere to go, and I'm just chuckling to myself being like, you've got nowhere to go, you're not putting makeup on, don't be silly, what are you doing
This is how travel advisors, this is how they actually spent, I would say, 2021, because 2020 they were so neck deep in all those cancellations. And 2021, they were like, oh, now I'll clean my makeup brushes. But legit, that's just it. So not only were they working for like $1.70 for that cruise, they didn't charge fees. Then they had to cancel and rebook it 17 times over. And now they're still saying, I don't charge fees. And I just think, how are you still in business? Who is funding you? Because this is not an option. It is just simply not an option for anybody who wants to have long-term stability. I actually am a firm believer that your clients should want to pay you fees so that you can afford to still be in business by the time they travel.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, now is the best time to change a policy, because it is not as a result of a choice that you've made. You've got a free, get out of jail free card in saying, going forward in 2022, and as a result of the pandemic, to be able to provide you a better service that is going to be able to still exist in 6 months' time, we have decided to implement a fee structure. This is to be able to do this. List out the benefits that respond to the pain points that have been felt in the last year. So if you can sit there and say to your customers, we're instigating a this much fee. This is so that we can be there when things get cancelled. Yep. So we can give you peace of mind when things change, so that we can be able to book those rebookings or those flights or those extra things that have gone wrong while still providing you a service. Because the fact of the matter is, people who pay attention. People who pay more attention. The person who's going to pay nothing won't give two shits about anything that you've done for them. So you can't be sitting there and expecting a customer or client who has never known or understood what it is to pay for something. You can't expect to change their mind. You just need to change your customer.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Now, I have a question just in general about pricing, because when I go to my hairdresser, it's about every 2 years, she lets me know that her prices are going up. And I'm like, okay, whatever, just so long as I can still go. Anybody listening can't see, but you can see it's been a while since I've seen her. The roots are coming back. My appointment's next week. Yeah. But the thing is, though, is that she gives me She just lets me know this is your last one. And on your next one, the price is going to increase. How should a travel advisor handle shifting prices? Or how often do you recommend, again, for the creatives? I actually believe travel advisors are creatives. They
Agreed.
are creating itineraries that are going to create memories to last a lifetime. And I think they actually do need to just accept the fact that they are creatives. And so
you are a creative problem solver with the problem served on a silver platter, ready for you to fix it.
Awesome.
Most definitely.
So
I think with the fee, sorry, I'm completely
go ahead.
railroading. So with understanding that yesterday's price has a best before date and tomorrow's price is different.
I love that.
It doesn't exist yet, and that's totally fine. I would not recommend going back to those who have paid you in the past and going, by the way, decided that I'm going to charge you differently, because that might, it's not that it's only damaging the relationship, but it's also damaging the future of that relationship. So that might be something that you kind of go, okay, that's what that is. But just like your hairdresser, you can have that conversation and go, so in the past, we haven't done this, and I've decided that I'm not going to apply this fee to your past booking or your current booking. But in future, please know that this is the cost next time. So it's not saying, well, this is changing right now. It's giving them a heads up and giving them the choice, because that is what pricing is. Pricing is not saying, here, pay this and this is it now. It's giving the customer or the client or the person on the other side of the transaction a choice of whether it be a yes or no, or a option A, B, or C. You're giving them a choice and an opportunity to work out whether what they see as valuable matches what you see as the value, and almost play a game of snap. And once you find that snap, great, cool, we can move on to the next round. But if you're trying to change the cards that are in the hand of the customer so that they match yours, or changing your cards to match theirs, someone's going to come up as a deficit. And that's going to be really damaging, not only for now, but later, because you're going to be setting yourself up for failure.
Absolutely. I love it. I was actually listening to a podcast earlier, the Sales Gravy podcast, and he was saying, if you're going to increase your prices, the first time your client should hear from you is not when you're wanting to increase your prices. You need to maintain that relationship all the way through the process, even when you're between buying cycles. You don't just let your client go back and then be like, hey, by the way, this time now that you want to book, my prices went up. You need to actually have conversations with them in between, even if that's something as simple as keeping a newsletter, an email system going and things like that, so that you still are maintaining that and nurturing that relationship. So it's not just about that one and done. You want to keep that relationship going. You want to have those conversations, even if it's just simply nurturing in the newsletter or things like that. Not just, hey, my prices are going up, sucks to be you type thing. But it's having that conversation in between so that they can see that you are the authority, that you are the expert and other such. And you're going to continue to inspire them to want to travel and to want to explore new things. And if you are a travel advisor who is looking at, okay, for 2022, this is my price. This is what I'm going to do. And maybe you do implement an annual rate review, and maybe a review is only reviewing your pricing. How did that work for you? Do you feel like your clients got sufficient value? And I think that's something that's really important. I'm going to chase another squirrel here. You are the one that decides whether or not your clients got value. And when you don't feel that what you do is worth anything, that is the only time that you cannot charge a fee. But if you feel as though you have added to the situation, you have saved them from showing up and knowing which kind of tests they needed, or that they needed to do this or that, or quite frankly, they gave you the spelling of their name over the phone, and then you had them send you a copy of their passport because you just had this feeling, and lo and behold, they actually have a different name on there. You saved them so much headache. You have provided value. If you've ever had a
Mm-hmm.
client reach out to you and say, hey, I want to book this hotel, and you don't just book it, but instead say, no problem. Do you mind if I ask what made you choose that one? And this is one that I love with TripAdvisor, because it happened to me over the years. I can't tell you how many times people would be like, TripAdvisor said it's a 5-star. I'm like, great, because it's actually a 2.
Oh,
Because TripAdvisor only tells you whether or not people's expectations were met or exceeded. A lot of times, especially when you're talking all inclusives in Mexico, it comes down to whether or not the bartender kept your drink full. That's what will adjust somebody's opinion as to whether or not a 2-star hotel is worth a higher ranking and things like that. So it's taking that moment to ask them questions. It's taking that moment to qualify them, because I assure you, when I have 5-star clients who bring me a 2-star hotel, I was adding immense value to their experience. So what they paid me $100 or whatever it was back in the day to give them that information, that no, this is not what you think it is. The value that was provided to them was incredible. Because can you imagine 7 days in a 2-star hotel when you think you're getting a 5-star?
And not only that, but you're actually changing the memory.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, I think, the thing we really kind of forget exists. So think back to the last memorable holiday that you had. Why was it memorable? And if it's for a bad reason, you might be sitting there thinking, what could I have done differently? And realistically, if you're able to be the reason that someone has a better experience, and then they come back again and are grateful and thankful, that's going to be way more impactful than if they have a bad experience, because realistically, you saved them. You saved that bad. Do you remember that bad Mexico trip that we took, and everyone got food poisoning, and then we got bed bugs? Like, I'll tell you right now, I've been on many a Kentucky trip, and the destinations that had the bad memories attached to them, I won't go back to. Doesn't even matter if it had, like, I got sick in Florence. I won't go back to Florence because my silly little brain has decided that that's where I get sick. So, if you're able to alleviate the situation, whatever's, possible and attainable and able to be changed, and save them from the bad experience, that's valuable. And sitting there kind of going, oh, well, I wish I had booked through someone who actually knew. Well, guess what? You're that someone.
Right? I personally, as a travel advisor, booked myself on a vacation that by day 2, I was bawling in my room every night and saying to my husband, I am so sorry, I can't afford to fly us home. I will never do this again. Was a game changer for everything I offered my clients from that moment on, because I refused to ever let a client go through that. And because I held so firm to the fact that I then had a standard I would not sell below, my clients knew that anything I suggested was going to be a success for them. And when they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you see them, you hear them, you know them, they're willing to pay, because they are going to trust you way more than any piece of marketing will ever make them trust you.
Absolutely. And we've also got to remember that there's a human element to a travel expert, because, we can sit there and be sold to, and it works because that's just the way we are. But if you can have that human element and aspect to it, it's going to be a completely different experience than a click here, buy now experience.
Yep.
Don't devalue that. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I knew you were the right one. As soon as I heard you on the other one, I'm like, we have got to talk.
So I really do still pinch myself over that Jasmine Star podcast, because I do actually remember the 3 minutes that I was on the Zoom waiting for it. And I was like, this is the most elaborate catfish I've ever experienced. This is definitely she hired and created a fake account for her producer, Christy, who is lovely. And she exists. They all exist. But I do remember sitting there going this is this is elaborate. This is an elaborate catfish. This is it. This is it. You are silly and then, as soon as she got on screen and I had my fangirl moment, I then had to like click into the pricing queen moment and go, well, you know what? She's just another Jasmine in another hat. And that's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, and that's just it. Because we can all take that experience, whether you're fangirling or whatever, but we all have that moment where we do think we're being catfished. But I think sometimes a lot of people, when they're having to price themselves, question if they are the catfish.
Yeah, but I think that's the difference is that, we need to try and remove the emotion out of our pricing. So that's probably one of the things I kind of want to highlight here is that pricing is a logical process. It shouldn't necessarily be an emotional process. There's human elements to it, but it needs to be more of a logical process, because if you're not making enough to cover your bills, to cover your time, to cover your effort, your energy, your skills, then that's not going to be a worthy process. And, if you're able to sit there and logically calculate, okay, well, this is how much I need to make in a year if I want to make this much plus this much to cover it all. And then work out, it's not necessarily an hourly rate, but working out, the cost of time, understanding that process. And if something else is telling you that logic process, you don't have to sit there and justify it from your heart. You're justifying it from your head, and it's a different experience.
Yep. Absolutely. 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 I think that's the best way to leave it, is the fact that you have to remove emotion from pricing, which means you have to remove fear from pricing. You have to remove ego from pricing. You have to remove every emotion from it and go with it strictly from the logical. This is what it costs. This is, if the lights are on, you're paying for the internet, this, that, the other. The internet company doesn't say, ooh, I wonder how people will feel about us if we charge an extra 50 cents a month. They don't care. They've got a cost that they need to hit. They have investors that they need to satisfy. There is price points, there's cost of goods, there's all these sorts of things. It is not about how it's going to make you look. It's not about how popular it's going to make you. It's about how successful you're going to make your clients. And in order to be able to serve them at a significant level, in order to be able to be there, to make the calls that need to be done, to deal with the problems that may or may not arise, you can only have so many clients. So I think that's something else too. When you're calculating, when you're working those numbers backwards, you have to realistically look at how many clients can I logically in a year to maintain the life that I want to live. If that's going to your kid's soccer game, if that's being able to travel X amount of weeks per month, whatever the case is, logically, there is only 24 hours in anybody's clock, in anybody's day. How many hours can you devote to clients? How many clients can you devote per hour? How many hours per client? You need to know what all those numbers are, and then you've got to work it backwards. Your commission is your bonus check.
Exactly. And that's, it's like tipping in the States. Like, it's understanding that that's the extra, the bit on top, the icing on top of the cake, the scoop of ice cream on top of the pie. It's understanding that there's a base level and there's a living level, and then there's the extras, the bits and pieces on top. And there's one thing that I really want to kind of stress that I actually didn't talk about this entire time, which I'm very surprised at. Travel is a luxury item. If you sell it cheaper, you're cheapening the industry, the experience, and the perception from the customer. So if the customer is sitting there thinking it's really cheap to travel, what a wrong perception they are getting. Absolutely. And what an incorrect outcome that you are providing.
And there's our mic drop. I love that. I love it. That is the best way to end. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, how fabulous was Jazz? I loved this conversation. Now, I forgot to double check with her before we got off the air. She has a gift for you. And if you are looking for ways to be able to try and calculate out what it's going to take to figure out your best pricing, things like that, I want you to go ahead and check out easyasPiePricing.com/selling travel. Again, easyasPiePricing.com/selling travel. Jazz has put together a fabulous pricing calculator to help you kind of figure out where you need to be and what it's going to take. So again, easyasPiePricing.com/selling travel to get your hands on that calculator. In the meantime, if you have any questions, as always, hit me up on the DMs of Instagram, Art of Selling Travel. And if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, go ahead and send me a connection. I'm there as Glenda Beagle, and I would love to connect with as many travel advisors as I can. Until next time, have a fabulous rest of your day.